So Britain faced the entire world of Arab and Muslim nations re her Palestinian policy. September was this, I forget the year here. See if it's mentioned. July 30, July 21. 1937. There it is. 1937. Close to World War II. Britain faced the entire world of Arab and Muslim nations re her Palestinian policy. September 37, in Damascus, 400 Arabs representing all the Arab states as well as Palestine itself resolved that Palestine was an integral party of the Arabian homeland. There's no Arabian homeland, a bunch of nations that were occupied and controlled by Arabs, and insisted that Britain had to choose between our friendship and the Jews. Yes, there you go. Politics. Never mind humans. By the end of the year, violence had broken out again. And that's their answer. British troops began an intensive military campaign against Arab terrorists. They're fighting back. It's a losing battle, though. The stage was clearly set for a radical change in British policy and for the beginning of the end of the plan of partition. Sad to say. Neither the continuing flow of refugees from the persecutions in Germany nor the reviving anti-Semitism in Poland, affecting as it did more than 3 million Jews, could weigh against the threats and the pressures of the Arab world. Wow. The inhumanity to the Jewish population by the millions. Doesn't matter, the Arabs are complaining. On October 27, in a Foreign Office memorandum entitled Palestine, Immediate Problem, Rendel gave the reasons for a new policy. Firstly, he wrote, bands of Arabs from neighboring countries are waiting to take the first opportunity to cross into Palestine to assist in the guerrilla warfare which is being proposed against the mandatory powers. They were doing so because they regarded the partition policy, quote unquote, as involving their ultimate extinction. Inevitably, the Arab rulers themselves would, given the Palestinian Arabs, an increasing degree of sympathy and support. Spell checking here. Nor was the strength of the Arabs confined to their influence within the Arab world, for as Rendel wrote, we have many enemies in Europe, and there are clear signs that Arabs are already turning to them for help against us. Not only had a British District Commissioner, Lewis Andrews, been murdered at the end of September, but each week moderate Arabs were being killed by Arab extremists. They're even killing their own if you don't have the same point of view. What kind of religion is that? The whole history of the last 20 years in Palestine have made it abundantly clear that by no other means than terrorism could the Arabs hope to get what they considered a square deal. Rendel was now ready to put forward his solution, the scrapping of partition and the imposition on the Jews of Palestine of permanent minority status. What possible chance had the hopes of Palestinian Jewry or the needs of European Jewry against such arguments in which the possibility of the Jews being masters of their own destiny was pitted against Britain's strategic aims from the Suez Canal to the Straits of Bab el-Mandeb, and against Britain's future relations with 4 separate existing Arab sovereign states, including 2, Iraq and Saudi Arabia, whose oil was already referred to in the documents as a vital British need. Politics and greed. Jewish hopes and British appeasement, 1938, getting close to World War II. From the beginning of 1938, British policy focused increasingly on the very solution which the Jews feared most, the fixing of permanent minority status in Palestinian Jewry by means of a severe cutback and eventual ban on Jewish immigration. The pressures which had come from the India Muslims in 1937 continued in 1938. Even from India, in Palestine, the Jews had been confronted since the beginning of 1938 with an increase in Arab violence, including the murder of Jewish farmers and sniping at Jewish buses and trucks. For the Jews of Europe, already the victims of hatreds beyond their control, March 1938 saw a further deterioration in their hopes of a normal life, for on March 15th Hitler entered Vienna and direct Nazi rule was at once extended to Austria. Leopold Amory wrote to Malcolm MacDonald, the new colonial secretary of Britain, on 30 May 1938. There is no real comparison between the quite natural resentment of the Arabs at seeing the character of their country changed, though with material advantage to themselves. I underline that. Wow, you don't like material advantages. You'd rather have it stick into desert. And the agony of the Jews of Central Europe, for whom there was no serious alternative city of refuge. The situation The situation of the Jews was becoming desperate. In Germany and Austria, their 1,000-year-old communities were rapidly being destroyed. In Poland and Romania, anti-Semitism had again become open, vociferous, and violent. Throughout Europe, the possibility of Nazi rule or pro-Nazi regimes encouraged and stimulated anti-Jewish feeling. In the Soviet Union, any attempt to express a specifically Jewish culture was suppressed, and all Zionist activity stamped out. Indeed, several 100,000 of the more active Jewish citizens, including all the Jewish Bolshevik leaders who had roused British hostility in the 1920s, had been wiped out in the Stalinist purges. That means killing, mass killing, then at their height. In Palestine, Arab attacks on Jews continue with terrible effect. Above all, the continuing restrictions on Jewish immigration from Europe were a constant source of distress for all Palestinian Jewry. Unbelievable. God's chosen people. The whole world. Godless activity. MacDonald warned of the danger of any policy that might arouse hostility amongst Muslims in India, at a time when Britain was trying to evolve a scheme of federation in which Hindus and Muslims would both participate. Above all, MacDonald argued the Arab rebellion in Palestine tied down considerable armed forces, thus immobilizing them for action anywhere else. Wow. Cost of human life. On July 6, an international conference opened in France at the town of Evian. The United States' decision to maintain its strict quotas served as a guideline for other states. Even America, complicit. Only the Dutch, the Danes, and the Republic of Santo Domingo agreed to let in refugees without restriction. A resolution was passed which stated that the countries of asylum, such as they were, are not willing to undertake any obligation towards financing involuntary emigration. Since February 1938, with the resignation of Anthony Eden and his replacement by Lord Halifax as Secretary of State for Foreign Affairs, the policy of appeasement of the Arabs had been actively pursued. During the summer of 1938, the British government moved steadily away from partition. You know, if you kill somebody and you somebody assists that person, that's complicit guilt. The whole world, complicit guilt against God's chosen people. In Palestine itself, the violence continued. The report of the government of Palestine, 1937, noted that since 1922, the Arab population increased by 261,000, compared with the Jewish increase of 245,000. The Arab population, by both its own immigration and a higher birth rate, had grown by a larger absolute number than the Jewish population. The report also referred to those Arabs who were dispossessed of their land as a result of Jewish land purchase, noting that for the whole of 1937, only 6 Arab families had claimed to have been dispossessed, and that each had then been settled on government land as compensation. They're probably better off. And Israel was providing prosperity there where there was none before, reclaiming desert places, the groves of trees, fruit-bearing trees, on where it was formerly desert. On August 12th, a secret note to his cabinet colleagues enclosing transcripts of his London and Jerusalem conversations, MacDonald noted great harm had already been done in Palestine by rumors that the wisdom of partition had been questioned in the cabinet, which have encouraged the Arab terrorists and those behind them to behave that if only they persist in their campaign, and they were persisting, they will force us to abandon this policy. The extremists were so powerful, MacDonald added, that they virtually dictate Arab policy. As 1938, the extremists, namely most Arabs that were even moderate toward the Jews, they weren't shooting a gun, they were loading the guns up with ammunition. As 1938 progressed, more and more boats, many of them organized by the revisionists, brought Jews from Poland, Germany, and Central Europe across the Black Sea through the Aegean Sea and on to Palestine. These illegal immigrants were determined not to remain in Europe, where their future was clearly bleak. The British government responded to this traffic by putting pressure on all the governments between Poland and Palestine not to allow the refugees or the ships to pass. Unprovoked and savage Arab attacks on Jewish civilian settlements continued unabated. Wow. Where's the military? Britain, you should be ashamed of yourself. Between 1933 and 1939, more than 65,000 German and Austrian Jews, including many doctors, lawyers, and other professional men, found asylum in Britain. But tens of thousands more were refused permission to enter, and those who were able to gain entry into Palestine were an even smaller portion of those who sought to enter. At the end of September 1938, the British government put pressure on Czechoslovakia to accede to Hitler's demands. Wow. You just bend over backwards to let the enemy win the battles. Leopold Amory, writing, Britain's Palestine policy is a replica of a small scale of the European situation. Absence of policy and fear of irritating those who mean mischief in any case. Sir Alison Russell stated, it has been alleged that the Jews have acquired the best land in Palestine, and it does not appear to me a fair statement. That which is the land now in possession of the Jews has become the best land in the true statement. It's a true statement because they made it that way. Prime Minister Neville Chamberlain stated bluntly that as Palestine had become a pan-Arab question, any discussion of its future had to include not only the Arabs of Palestine, but also those whom he called the Arab princes from the neighboring Arab states. What have they got to do with it, including Saudi Arabia, Transjordan, and the Yemen? In its conclusion, the Cabinet's Palestine Committee of October 24th decided that the proposals of the Peel Commission should be abandoned, and that a public announcement should be made to the effect that the setting up of independent Arab and Jewish states is impracticable. Yeah, all they do is kill a whole bunch of Jews, and then they back up. On October 28, 1938, the German government began the deportation of all Polish-born Jews. Malcolm MacDonald, British Cabinet. The British government had to choose between its commitments to the world of Jewry and its commitments to the world of Islam. Wow. In spite of the adversities which it is now suffering, the world of Jewry remained extremely influential. For example, there were said to be 3 million Jews in the United States. On the other hand, the British Empire itself was to a very considerable extent a Muslim empire. Some 80 million of our fellow subjects in India were Muslims. From the defense point of view, it was literally out of the question that we should antagonize either the Muslims within the empire or the Arab kingdoms or the Near East. Wow. Controlled by evil. The violation of the pledge. January-June 1939. The crux of the new British policy in a secret cabinet memorandum on January 18th, as the MacDonald Memorandum explained, we cannot accept the contention that all Jews as such have a right to enter Palestine. We cannot avoid an eventual clash. If we continue to carry out the Balfour Doctrine between the forces of persecuted, desperate, brilliant, constructive Jewry in Palestine and the widespread pan-Arab movement which is rallying to the defense of its weakest brethren, the Arabs of Palestine,